The formation of a Dutch cabinet is the process of negotiating an agreement that will get majority support in Parliament for the appointment of the Council of Ministers and gives sufficient confidence that agreed policies will be supported by Parliament. Dutch cabinet formations tend to be a time-consuming process, and the process is for the most part not codified in the constitution. The Cabinet of the Netherlands is the executive body of the Dutch government. It consists of ministers and junior ministers, or state secretaries as they are called in the Netherlands. The cabinet requires support from both chambers of the Dutch parliament to pass laws. Thus, to form a stable government, sufficient and preferably majority support in both chambers is required. Due to several factors, the multi-party system and the nationwide party list system of proportional representation, no political party has ever had a majority in the House of Representatives since 1900. Indeed, since the adoption of the current proportional representation system in 1918, no party has even come close to the number of seats needed for a majority in its own right. To gain sufficient support in both chambers, at least two parties must agree to form a government with majority support. The negotiations leading to this agreement are the cabinet formation period in the Netherlands. Cabinet formation is engaged in two situations. After each general election, the incumbent cabinet resigns, but continues in a caretaker role until a new cabinet is formed. Due to changing party representations in the House of Representatives, a new cabinet has to negotiate it, even if the same parties that were part of the previous government continue in office. The agreement has to be renegotiated to fit election promises and shift in powers. Another reason for cabinet formation can be the fall of a cabinet, i.e., those cases where the agreement between parties breaks down. In the latter case, a new cabinet can be formed without general elections. Although in practice the House of Representatives is almost always disbanded and early general elections are called. First, the leaders of all the elected parties meet with the Speaker of the House of Representatives to appoint a scout. Next, the scout meets with the chairs of each parliamentary party in the House of Representatives, the political leaders of all parties. The talks concern how to interpret the election results and on which parties should form the new cabinet. On basis of this advice, the House of Representatives then appoints an informator who explores the options for a new cabinet. The informator often is a relative outsider and a veteran politician who has retired from active politics, a member of the Senate, Council of State or a Minister of State. He generally has a background in the largest party in the House of Representatives. It is also possible to appoint multiple informators with backgrounds in other prospective partners. The informator is given a specific task by the House of Representatives, often to seek a coalition of parties with coalition agreement and a majority in Parliament. The informator has meetings with individual chairs of parliamentary parties, and chairs sessions of negotiations between them. During these negotiations, the parties try to find compromises on the policies of the future government and draft a coalition agreement. If the informator is unsuccessful, he tenders his resignation and the process starts again, with new consultations and the appointment of a new informator. If he is successful, he will advise the House of Representatives to appoint a formator. By convention, the formator is the leader of the senior partner in the prospective coalition, and hence the prospective Prime Minister. He or she concludes the talks between the members of the prospective coalition, focusing on any matters left unresolved by the informator. Once these matters are resolved, the formatter allocates the government portfolios and nominates cabinet members. It usually takes several months of negotiations before the formatter is ready to accept a formal royal invitation to form a government. The monarch then appoints all ministers and state secretaries individually by royal decree. Each minister swears an oath of loyalty to the constitution. After this, the entire council of ministers and the monarch are photographed on the stairs of his 10-boss palace. The newly minted ministers all tender their resignations from the House of Representatives. As cabinet ministers are not allowed to be members of parliament, the new cabinet then proposes its program to parliament and is confirmed in office. Prior to 2012, the monarch played a considerable role in the formation of a government. After each election, he or she met with the presiding officers of both legislative chambers, then with the parliamentary leaders of the parties represented in the House of Representatives, in order to hail